Hello everyone, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Michael and today I'm going to be making the classic meatloaf, and I wanted to show you how I make mine. So we're going to start out by preheating that oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit, or that's 165 degrees Celsius. And I've got a baking pan here and I've got just some parchment paper on the bottom of it. We're actually going to be putting the meatloaf itself on the parchment paper and forming it that way. I remember when I was growing up, my mother would make them and she'd put them in the loaf pans and bake them that way. So I've got my parchment paper here, my pan, my oven's preheating. All of my ingredients are ready to go. Let's meet at the stove and let's get started. All right, I've got my skillet here. I'm gonna put just a little bit of olive oil in the bottom. All right, I'm gonna turn that flame down to a medium low. All right, I got one large onion here. That's about 2 cups of onion, or about 200 grams. I've got 1 teaspoon of fresh thyme. If you don't have fresh thyme, you can use a half a teaspoon of dried. I've got 1 teaspoon of salt and a half a teaspoon of ground black pepper. Now I'm just going to cook these until those onions are translucent, and that should take about 6 to 8 minutes. All right, my onions are looking really good. They're looking translucent, so I'm going to turn off the heat. And to those, I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. I've got 1/3 of a cup, or 80 milliliters of a chicken stock, and I've got 1 tablespoon of tomato paste. And with that, I'm just going to give that a good mix through. And we're going to get that tomato paste broken down into all of those other ingredients there. All right, I'm going to let that cool down for just a little bit, and I'll meet you back up front and we'll go on with the next step. We're now ready to move on to the next steps. I've got my ground beef here. This is a 85-15 blend. And I really like this for the fat content that's in there. It gives it a lot of extra flavor on that. And this is 2.5 pounds, or 1.1 kilograms. And we're going to go ahead and start with our other ingredients now. And I've got 2 eggs here, and I'm going to break those open. I want to make sure that I don't get any eggshells in with my ground beef. And we also want to make sure we get some good eggs. So looking at that, looks like we've got a good one there. So we'll add that in and I'll do the other one. All right, my second egg is going in now. So I've got some breadcrumbs here. This is 3/4 of a cup, or 90 grams, and we're just going to add those in. Those are plain panko breadcrumbs. And now I've got 1/3 of a cup of ketchup, and we're going to put that in on top of this. So I've got my meat tool here. I'm going to go ahead and start with that and start incorporating that together. We want to kind of keep this light. We don't want to compress the meat down and really make that dense. That's not going to be a good meatloaf on that. So I'm probably going to get my hands in there in just a minute, because that's probably going to be the best way to do this. But just to get it kind of broken up a little bit, I'm going to use this little meat tool that I've got here. All right, I've got the meat combined together now in this bowl, and I went over and got my onions and my other ingredients, and that has cooled down a little bit, and we're going to put that in right on the top of that. All right, now I'm going to take this meat tool again and just kind of incorporate that into that. I'm probably going to go in with my hands, but we'll see what this is going to do here. All right, I'm going to take my clean hands. I'm just going to go in and just give that a little pull in on itself, just to make sure that everything gets mixed together. And we're not going to compress it down. We want to keep it real nice and airy. And we're just going to bring it together enough so that all the ingredients get combined together. All right, I've got my baking tray back here again, and we're going to bring our meat in for our meatloaf. And I'm just going to put that here on the pan and kind of spread that out into a log kind of shape. Now I'm going to take my clean hands again, and we're just going to form that into kind of a log shape here. We're going to compress in on the edges. All right, now I've got 1/2 cup of ketchup, and I'm just going to put that across the top. Spread that out, and I've got a brush here, and I'm going to brush it evenly across the whole top. Now I've got a second pan under that, and I really like that because that kind of creates an air buffer between there, and it creates an even heating all the way across. And we're going to put that into that preheated 325 degree Fahrenheit, or 165 degrees Celsius oven, and we're going to bake this for 1 hour to 1 hour 15 minutes. We want that internal temperature to come up to 160 degrees Fahrenheit, or 70 degrees Celsius. And if it looks like it's browning a little bit too much on the top, you can actually put a little bit of aluminum foil over the top of it and just tint it really high. That way the foil won't be touching the actual ketchup. So keep a watch on it. Everybody's oven is going to cook a little bit differently. I'll come back and I'll show you what's going to happen next. I am back, and my meatloaf is cooked for an hour, and I've got my thermometer here. I want to test it to see what the internal temperature is. For ground beef, we need that to be a minimum of 160 degrees. and mine's at 174 on that side, so I'm going to check on this side and see what it is. Check it in a couple of places. This one says 178. The middle showing 167. So the outside's a little bit more done than the middle. So definitely we want to make sure that we're safe with that ground beef, internal temperature of that. So now we want to let this rest. You do not want to cut into it now, because if you do, all the juice will run out and it'll get really dry. So we're going to let this rest for about 10 to 15 minutes. It'll cool down. All those juices in there will contract back into the meat and make this really nice and juicy. Let this sit before you cut into it. We'll come back and we'll do a taste test. Stick with me. I am back, and my meatloaf has cooled down enough, and I did transfer it to a platter here, and I wanted to show you what it looks like. It smells absolutely incredible and looks really nice too. So let's give this a cut and give this a taste test. I'm going to cut a little bit off this edge over here on this side. That looks really incredible. I'll turn it over here on the side so that you can see down into it. All those onions through there looks really nice, and it is really nice and fragrant. Now let's give this a taste test. I know this is going to be absolutely incredible. Let's try it. Oh my goodness, I should have got a bigger slice. Those onions are coming through. That seasoning in there is to perfection. The ketchup on the top has glazed on the top of that while it's baked in there. And it actually seeped down into the meat a little bit. Plus, the little bit of ketchup we put in there also inside of the meat is really coming through also. I know you're going to want to try this recipe. Let's get me another bite. I don't have much left. I might as well just eat the whole thing. Wow. I better save a little bit for later. I've got plenty of my meatloaf. This makes great sandwiches the next day, meatloaf sandwiches. If you're doing meal prep, this would be great for that also. Slice this up and you've got your meals, and you can put those away for the week. If you like this content, maybe you might consider giving me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And while you're at it, check out one of these other two videos over here on the side. You might find something else you like. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave me a comment. I want to hear how your meatloaf turns out. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye now.